So Eskom is now saying things could get worse if it runs out of diesel and water. While the country currently dealing with stage 4 blackouts, you'll see at the top right-hand side of your screen. This, we're told, after further breakdown in units. So stage 4 in place until tomorrow morning, Friday morning, 5 a.m. Then we're going to go back to stage 2. How lucky are we? That's going to be implemented from 5 a.m. tomorrow until Monday. But I feel as we head into winter, Chris Yelland, energy sector analyst, it's not going to get any better. We're going to talk about later in the year. But first of all, remind me, I feel like we've gone into stage 6 before, but there's so many levels and so often we have blackouts. I've actually forgotten. What does that mean if we go to stage 6? And do you think, Chris, good morning, we could actually get there?
Yeah, firstly, just to remind everybody, we did have stage 6 in 2019. The president was recalled from Egypt at the time to deal with this. They had a media briefing and they announced the so-called risk mitigation IPP program, an emergency program to deal with this. And now it's 2022, more than 2 years later, and they haven't even procured or placed an order for this so-called emergency procurement. Stage 6 is really very serious, has massive impact on the economy. It just means a ramping up of the frequency of load shedding and the duration of load shedding that we can expect.
So my crack executive producer just sent this to me just to help Gareth understand. She knows when it comes to power, I need some numbers on this. So stage 6, tell me if I'm right, tell me if Marotti is right. Stage 6 doubles the frequency of stage 3. And according to Eskom, it means load shedding will be scheduled over 4-day periods and for 4 hours at a time. Here's the issue. Most of our UPSs can just about sneak through 2.5 hours. It can't do 4 hours multiple times a day.
Yeah, it means people are going to have to buy bigger UPSs, bigger battery backups, maybe even a standby petrol or diesel generator set if you're a business. And it all adds cost, but it doesn't produce more. It just hopefully enables you to carry on with business as usual at a greatly increased cost to your company, to the country, to the economy. So that's what with, and you're right, the figures are correct. Stage 6 means 6,000 megawatts of load shedding, switching off for up to 4 hours at a time at increased frequency compared to any of the other stages.
So when we now talk about trying to get ready for winter, because we've been doing this a long time, you and I, Chris, we've been having this dance, haven't we? That during summer we're told it's because of the rain, then the coal got wet, then there is infrastructure breakdown. Then we all like to think, well, if the rain is gone, the coal isn't wet because of winter, we're going to be fine. But we aren't, are we?
No, yeah, you're right. It's either the wind or the rain or the heat. Even when on a hot day, they tell us that there is power stations, especially the air-cooled power stations, the dry-cooled power stations, they produce electricity, less electricity during hot days. So whether it's hot, whether it's cold, whether it's windy, whether it's sunny, whether it's rainy, there's always some reason why we are running short of electricity. But the bottom line is we don't have enough generation capacity that is available for service. We've got plenty of generation capacity, but at least half of it right now, half of the coal-fired power stations, more than half, in fact, of the coal-fired power stations are not available for duty. That means the availability is very low, and that means we cannot meet demand.
Chris, before I ask you about what could we possibly as citizens of the country try and do to assist and how we can at least try and make our lives easier as citizens, I want to ask you this question. I may have asked you, but just remind me, if we were to give Eskom all the money in the country, they could take the entire fiscus, all the billions, hundreds of billions, billions of billions, and they could go and fix whatever they had to do. How quickly could we get back to where we need to be in an alternative universe, Chris Yelland?
You know, it's not about throwing money at the problem. It certainly takes time, number one. And number two, one has to deal with the underlying issues and not simply throw money at it. It's not about the money. There is money. And if it could sort things out, I'm sure it would be done because the cost to the economy is truly enormous. The real solutions are going to come certainly in the next 2 to 3 years, not from government procurement. It's too slow. too bureaucratic, and we've seen this with the risk mitigation IPP program, we've seen this with the renewable energy IPP program, the gas to power program, the new coal program, the nuclear program that's never started. These things are just too slow. So the solutions are going to come from the customer, from you and me and commercial and industrial and mining and agricultural customers of electricity are going to need to become part of the solution. We are all going to have to install a certain amount of self-generation, distributed generation, embedded generation to help relieve Eskom of a burden which is clearly quite unable to meet. So the more people install self-generation or distributed generation, the less Eskom has to deliver from the grid, and that means it will perhaps be able to meet the reduced demand for electricity. So yes, the future comes from the customer, certainly in the short term. In the longer term, I'm not saying that there's no role for state procurement or government procurement, but the customer has got to become part of the solution, and in the short term, that is the answer.
Yeah, it's all going to be about how we're going to handle it for ourselves, let the customers light the way. Well, that was an unfortunate turn of phrase. Chris Yelland, thank you very much, indeed, energy sector analyst, joining us here on the South African Morning. In case you haven't seen